Hi, welcome, beautiful, beloved souls. I've still got a bit of toothache. I'm going back to the dentist tomorrow for another different tooth. So that might put me out for another couple of days, but I'm trying to get through it. And I appreciate the kind remarks that have been left, especially over the anniversary of Rob's death. For those of you who are new, my name is Jem, and I'm a psychic medium and I'm an author. And on this channel, you'll find mostly commentaries that vary content. I don't fit a particular niche. So let's get into it. I just want to let you know that I've also done a channeling in my favorite channeling book about this. So the title is VRIL. I'll spell it for you. VRIL, VRIL. VRIL, Reptilians, and the eye parasite myth. Where did this really come from? There's a story making its way across the internet. You might have seen it. Videos of celebrities where something seems to move in their eye. People slow it down, zoom in, replay it frame by frame. And then comes the claim that a parasite called VRIL, VRIL, enters through the eye, pushes out the soul, and something else takes over, a reptilian. Not metaphorically, literally. Now, before we go any further, I want to read something to you. This is something I've channeled. So I'm going to, instead of reading it all, I'll break it down. This is what I channeled. A conspiracy. Not true. Not demonic. There is no parasite. What happens is this. A human commits an act so perverted, so far outside their soul, that it causes shock, a fracture. They appear different, as if something else has taken over. But nothing has entered them. They have disconnected from themselves. And also, that the reason reptilians are able to commit perverted acts is because they're reptilians, but humans were not meant to carry out these acts, and this is why they get shocked. And it ends up with, it's easy to fool people when they do not question the narrative. Always be skeptical with love. So I'll just quickly show you. It's just brief writing I did today because I had heard about it and I wanted to see if this was true. Okay. So what do we do with what I channeled? Because on one side, we have viral videos, millions of views, people convinced they're seeing something real. And on the other, we have a very different explanation. But to understand any of this, we need to go backwards, way backwards. Part 1, the origin of VRIL, VRIL. The word VRIL, VRIL, didn't come from science. It didn't come from biology, and it definitely didn't come from parasites. It came from a novel. In 1871, a British author named Edward Bulwer Lytton, and I'll spell his last name, Bulwer, a hyphen Lytton, Bulwer Lytton, wrote a book called The Coming Race. I'll repeat it, The Coming Race. In this story, there's a hidden race of beings living beneath the earth, and they possess a mysterious force, VRIL, VRIL, VRIL. It's described as an energy, a power, something that can heal or destroy, almost like electricity mixed with consciousness. But here's the key. It was fiction, a Victorian era imagination trying to grasp ideas about energy, evolution, and hidden worlds, long before modern science caught up with anything remotely similar. There were no parasites, no eye entry, no body snatching, just a story. Part 2. When fiction starts breathing. But stories don't always stay stories. Over time, some people began to treat VRIL as if it were real. There are even references to something called the VRIL Society, Nazi Germany, VRIL, a group that supposedly believed in this hidden energy. Now, whether that group truly existed in the way it's described is debated, but what matters is this. The ideas of VRIL left the pages of a novel and entered belief systems. And once something crosses that line, it starts evolving. Part 3. Enter the Reptilians. Fast forward to modern times. A new layer gets added to the story. Reptilian beings, shapeshifters, hidden among us, wearing human faces. This idea was heavily popularized by David Icke, and I love David Icke. And suddenly, two completely separate concepts, a fictional energy called VRIL and shape-shifting reptilian entities, and they start getting woven together like threads in a tapestry that were never meant to touch. Part 4. The Internet mutation. Then comes the Internet, and more specifically, short-form videos, because platforms like TikTok don't reward careful research. They reward impact, shock, fear, curiosity. So the story mutates again. Now it's not just energy, not just reptilians. Now it's a parasite, a physical thing, something that enters through the eye, because the eye feels symbolic. They say the eye is a gateway to the soul. So the eye does feel symbolic, like a gateway, like a door into the body. And suddenly you have a complete narrative. A parasite enters, the soul leaves, a reptilian takes over. It's cinematic. It's disturbing. It spreads fast. But there's a problem. There's no evidence, not biological, not medical, not historical. Part 5. Why it feels real. And yet, people believe it. So we have to ask, why? Because something is happening. People do look different sometimes. People do change, sometimes drastically. A person can go from being warm, kind, connected to cold, detached, unrecognizable. My husband went from a beautiful soul to a man committing domestic violence because of sepsis. It was as if something had taken over his body before we realized he was ill. And when a person changes completely to something else, when that happens, the mind searches for an explanation, something dramatic enough to match the feeling. So instead of saying they've changed, the story becomes they're not the same person anymore. And from there, it's not a big leap to something replace them. Part 6. Interpreting my channeling. Now, let's come back to my channeling, because what it suggests is something very different. Not invasion, but disconnection. The idea that when someone commits acts that go completely against their core, their soul, their identity, their sense of self, fractures. And from the outside, that fracture can look like possession, like replacement, like something else has stepped in. But instead, it's absence, not something entering, something leaving, or at least retreating. Part 7. The danger of not questioning. And this is where the final line of my channeling becomes important. It's easy to fool people when they do not question the narrative, because the VRIL, Parasite story, relies on you not asking, where did this come from? Who first said that? Is there any evidence? Or does it just feel convincing? Belief without questioning is like leaving your front door open in a storm. Anything can walk in. Part 8. Grounding back into reality. There are real things in this world that affect behavior. As I explained, illness, trauma, guilt, psychological breakdown, and neurological changes. These can alter a person so deeply that even people who know them feel like they're gone. And that's confronting, because a parasite is easier to accept than that. A reptilian is easier to imagine than the complexity of the human mind. Closing. So, where does that leave us? We have a Victorian novel that imagined a mysterious energy, an internet culture that reshaped it into something biological, and a modern audience trying to make sense of change, behavior, and identity. And somewhere in the middle of all that is you and I, watching, questioning, deciding what feels true. So maybe the real takeaway isn't whether VRIL exists. Maybe it's this: not everything that looks supernatural is, and not everything that feels real is true. Question the story, even this one. Thank you very much, beautiful, beloved souls, for the view. And yeah, when I started the channeling, I didn't realize the connection to Nazi Germany. So-called Nazi Germany had VRIL societies, and now we believe in reptilians, and now there's this connection from a word that was invented in a Victorian novel, that when someone commits such an perverted act that this VRIL or a parasite enters their eye, and that's why they do it, and they become a reptilian. Let me know in the comments, do so respectfully. Have you heard first of VRIL society in Nazi Germany? Have you heard of this Victorian novel? And have you heard of the modern internet conspiracy of VRIL, the parasite that enters through the eye? Please be kind to each other. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you on the flip side. Love, light, and blessings. Bye.